You. Attuned to the external service of Radio Halifax, please stand by for a news bulletin. International. Situation in Ukraine. On the 24th of February, Russia launched a special military operation amid Kiev's ongoing shelling of the DPR and LPR. President Vladimir Putin stated that the op is meant to protect the people of Donbass, and its goal is the complete demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. The Russian foreign minister arrived at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations on Wednesday to comment on the most pressing issues affecting international politics, including the Ukraine crisis, and answer students' questions. The current Russophobia in the West is a verdict on Western civilization, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in his address to students at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations. Speaking about the priorities of Russian foreign policy in view of the ongoing special military operation in Ukraine, Lavrov said that the prompt conclusion of Russia-Ukraine negotiations is not beneficial for the United States. According to him, Washington wants hostilities between Russia and Ukraine to continue as long as possible. It is difficult to shake the impression that our American colleagues are holding Kiev by the hand. If you read the works of political scientists, both ours and Western ones, the Americans simply proceed from the fact that it is unprofitable for them if this process is completed quickly. They expect to continue pumping weapons into Ukraine, Lavrov said. He stressed that Russia is not against Western mediation in talks with Ukraine, but there are certainly some red lines that should not be crossed. U.S. Navy deploys carrier strike group in Med to implement Ukraine no-fly zone if Biden gives order. Yesterday, when asked about the possibility of peacekeepers being deployed to Ukraine, the minister said that this could lead to a clash between Russian and NATO forces. Our Polish colleagues have already stated that there will be a NATO summit, and peacekeepers should be sent. I hope they understand what they are talking about. This will be the very direct clash between the Russian and NATO armed forces, which everyone did not just want to avoid, but said that it should not take place at all, Lavrov explained. Commenting on the unprecedented sanctions imposed by the West on Russia after the beginning of the operation in Ukraine, Lavrov said these restrictions are aimed at removing Russia as an obstacle to a unipolar world. This all is about removing the obstacle in the form of Russia on the way to building a unipolar world. This is not about Ukraine, this is about a world order in which the United States wants to be the sole sovereign and dominate, Lavrov said. According to the minister, the freezing of the Russian central bank's reserves by the West is just theft. Going back to the major goals of the Russian special operation in Ukraine, Lavrov said that concerns Moscow had about Kiev preparing an offensive in the Donbass region have proved reasonable. It looks that somebody has forgotten that Kiev had been amassing over 100,000 troops on the contact line and intensified shelling of the Donbass territories. We have documents proving that our concerns were not baseless. Ukraine was about to start its offensive on Donbass, Lavrov stressed. Moscow will demand that Ukraine cancel legislation directed against the Russian-speaking population of the country, the Russian foreign minister added. He noted that under the presidency of Volodymyr Zelensky, all attempts to reintroduce Russian as a second official language in regions where it is spoken were shot down by lawmakers. Copyright coastal city of Mariupol has become a major focal point of fighting in eastern Ukraine. As many as 15,000 Ukrainian troops and National Guard fighters are concentrated here, among them the 53rd Mechanized Brigade and the infamous neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. Up to 150,000 civilians also remain trapped in areas controlled by nationalist forces. Ukrainian forces have been attempting to disguise themselves as civilians in order to escape Russian and Donbass militia encirclement in Mariupol, with some even resorting to dressing up in women's clothing, Donetsk People's Militia Battalion Commander Oleg Kokorev has told Sputnik. Well, for one thing, they are hiding behind civilians. And secondly, as we evacuate civilians, they try to escape disguised as civilians, to our side here, to blend in somewhere and get away, Kokorev said. Today one even made me laugh. He was dressed like Papadopoulos, you know from the movie Wedding in Malinovka, in a woman's fur coat with a big white pile and women's shoes and a dress. And he swore that he is a civilian, that he lives here. Well, you could tell by looking at him that he is a fighter, the commander said. Kokorev reported multiple cases of attempts by militants to escape in women's clothing. Kokorev said suspected Ukrainian troops and National Guard fighters are questioned and sent to the proper authorities for further questioning after being caught. Our boys do a good, nice job. So, victory is ours, we will win, Kokorev stressed. The footage of a captured Ukrainian serviceman dressed in women's clothing being taken out of the back of a military truck in Mariupol is reminiscent of videos from the conflict in Syria, where Syrian army and Kurdish forces repeatedly reported cases of terrorist fighters trying to flee the battlefield. Dressed as women in head-to-toe burqas, or attempting to blend in with civilians by shaving their trademark beards en masse. The battle for Mariupol has become one of the deadliest in the course of the ongoing Russian military operation in Ukraine, with Russian and Donbass forces engaging Ukrainian troops and the Azov neo-Nazi militants in house-to-house fighting amid attempts by the latter to hide in residential areas, and the Azovstal iron and steel works. Mariupol was estimated to have had as many as 400,000 residents before the fighting began, with Donetsk People's Republic head Denis Pushilin saying Wednesday that 150,000 civilians remain trapped in the city in areas controlled by nationalist formations. Russian and DPR troops are said to control about half of the city. On Tuesday, the Russian military called the humanitarian situation in the city catastrophic, and said that over 68,000 people had evacuated from the conflict zone without the Ukrainian government's involvement. Earlier, DPR officials accused Kiev of deliberately trapping civilians in the city. This has been a news bulletin from the external service of Radio Halifax. Until next time, this is Radio Halifax out.